All right, so for those of you who are using Toon Boom, again, I'm not going to teach you Toon Boom, but it is a really wonderful tool. So I'm just going to start here. I'm going to do a couple of things. My glasses off here. Card, drawing layer, drawing. This is my stage. There's a little thing here where I can, oops, hold on a second. There's a little button I can press here that shows me, remember the first thing that we did last week was talk about one field in is action safe. And this is the lines that connect the diagonals. It does not show me the title safe. This shows the area outside cut out, but I can leave that on if I'd like. So what I'm going to do right now on this drawing layer here is just a couple of reminders for everybody. And let's just go through these reminders. I'm going to pick a nice blue color for my pencil. I'm going to use a pencil on this one. So remember that this area right here, I like how I said blue and it comes out purple. So this area right here is another field inside. So this is the framing, 16 by 9, 16 units by 9 units. One field in is action safe. 2 fields in is title safe. And then it doesn't have the cinematic thirds. So let's pick another color here. So divide the vertical and the horizontal into thirds. And again, I think that this is good for you to just get a handle on this, because you need to concentrate on where your focal points are. You get it in your mind that those are your main focal points. The center is a focal point as well. You should always keep a normal neutral camera right around the first horizontal third. Right, so those are the basic rules. You want to try to keep your action inside this area right here, just for whatever you're doing. And remember that for any kind of basic setup, just set up your, if you're doing a 1-point perspective, set up your perspective just to get it in your hand, get it in your mind's eye. Oops. Remembering my keyboard shortcuts here. Give yourself a little grid. Remind yourself that there's perspective in the sky. So set up your perspective in the sky. And it's always a good thing to remind yourself to set the perspective in the sky. And this is I'm drawing at full size right here. And I'm doing this just to remind everyone that this is just a really great way to set up and you don't have to do this for every single shot, but if you are doing it digitally and you want to spend time on this, you copy and paste this into any of your new panels, your new frames. So right now I'm going to give myself a new color. Traditional animators roughs are blue. And so remind yourself that in any of these situations here, any of these setups here, that if you're doing a drawing of a character, start with the head, draw that line of action. Set the body as kind of a bean shape. Give yourself a nice pose, a nice neutral pose. You see this with the line of action. You know, give your character a sense of attitude within that character. So maybe this boy is carrying his book. He's got the little bag on his shoulder. So this is a nice way to drive that particular line of action. In this, if he's in perspective here, any other version of this boy in perspective is going to be in the same line here. And you should know this. So any other version of this boy is going to belong to that same grid. So you should be able to draw any size of the boy in perspective by setting up the head and feet like that. So that's just the general rules of 1 point perspective. And you should know that. All right, once again, remember, this is your focal points. There's a focal point in the middle. You can have a focal point anywhere you want. There's a long dissertation of a dude out there who claims that animators and cinema teachers should never teach the rule of thirds because it constrains your creativity. My take is that it's a good place to start, but just remember that you can always break out of that. All right, so let's just jump over here to the web for a second and remind you this. I think I posted this in the class last week, but this is the way to find a really great tutorial on the line of action, which is Flooby Newbie, and then Mickey's Christmas Carol. And you can put in line of action too, and it should take you to the first hit. And so we talked about this just a little bit last week. This is a great reference. This Flooby Newbie site has all kinds of great stuff on it for animators. So here they're just reminding you that it's always good to be thinking of silhouette. It's always good. These are excellent rough drawings. They're talking about using overlapping shapes and negative space, foreshortening, depth of field, perspective. These lines of action here are close, but they're not right on. These are great. These are from the Warner Brothers, Tom and Jerry era. These are great. These lines of action are absolutely perfect. They're borrowed from anything in real life, whether it's from video or photography. Here's a reminder to make sure you're drawing 3-dimensionally. Here's another way of adding secondary lines of action. Here's another way of drawing 2 characters with second, third lines of action. These are great. These are excellent. Here's some really great ways of just drawing storyboard panels with the line of action. These are great. SpongeBob is a rectangle. He cannot be drawn and animated unless he's got a line of action. So this stuff is all great. This is really great. You can see this page is really long. This stuff is great. This stuff is excellent. This is great. Study this. It's great. This is excellent. All right, and then remember, and here they're talking about Walter Lantz, Woody Woodpecker, and the negative space and how the line of action changes from an S shape into a single curve shape. This is a really great way to know this as an animator, is to go from a compressed line of action into one that's a little more open as keyframes. You should know this when you're drawing storyboard panels. It's a great way to direct your storyboard panels. How much squash and stretch do you want out of your character? All right, and here's an example of how to get a line of action out of photography. This stuff is great. Some manga-esque kind of drawings. Remember that your character can have multiple lines of action per pose. So this is great. This is excellent. And these are my favorite. Right here, these are nice, gestural, sketchy drawings. The line of action is always done first. And there's lots of poses in there. These are all excellent. This whole section here is excellent. And remember, I made a point that once you get to the Mickey's Christmas Carol part of it, these are all screwed up. None of these are right. This is wrong. They don't match the character. This one's off of Scrooge by a big margin. This one's barely touching Mickey. So all this stuff is wrong. All of these are wrong. His back is arched. This one's wrong. These are all wrong. Here they're talking about the cinematic third. So they jump from that, talking about composition and the rule of thirds and how things are falling on the focal points. This one's a little closer. Still don't like it. These are a little closer, but I still don't like them. They're all done wrong. They were done after the production. So ignore all this stuff. These are great poses. When Scrooge kicks him out of the house, these are great poses. But the line of action screwed up. You know, this is wrong. It's wrong. And then it changes. Then it goes from this point here from Moley and Ratty from Wind in the Willows, from The Adventures of Mr. Toad. Again, just ignore the lines of act. These are a little closer, but these poses are great. The poses are excellent. And then they talk about composition, using elements within the frame to point at the character. So this stuff is excellent. So in this stuff right here, in the Floobie Newbie, just ignore that post-production stuff. These are great drawings, great ideas for composition, great ideas for adding animation principles of squash and stretch and exaggeration into story panels. So this is great. These are all great here. A little more convincing with the lines of action. And then I think you can go back to the top. And then I'm going to copy this and put it in the chat for you. So when you go to this main site for Floobie Newbie, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Just dig around and look at it. So let me go back to Zoom. I'm going to put that Floobie Newbie thing in the chat. So go ahead and grab that. All right, so back to our little demo. All right, so you got this. That was just a refresher. And I lost there's my mouse, okay. So I'm gonna do a new drawing here. Again, I'm not gonna technically go into Toon Boom too much, but what we want to talk about here is we have the script. We already have that script. The Boy Who Drew Cats, we know what we're doing. So I'm gonna draw a map first. And so we got the farm over here. We're gonna do the farm. And then we're gonna do Temple 1. And we're gonna do a path through the forest to Temple 2. And so on the farm, we're just gonna draw an aerial view of some trees. We're gonna put Billy here. We're gonna put the dad here. And this is we're just using this frame to draw on, but because this is a map, we can do anything we want. There might be the farmhouse over here. There might be horses. There might be more trees, smaller trees, that kind of thing. The brothers are over here, so we'll just pick A and C for the brothers. And what that does is it puts everyone in a line. So if I use my first 180-degree rule here and keep all my cameras on this side of it, that I'm not going to get into trouble. And from my establishing shot here, I can see all of this. I can see Billy and the dad and the brothers. And so this could be camera A, this could be camera B. So that's great for an establishing shot. All right, so this is Temple 1. I'm gonna just draw the temple like this. There's a pathway here. I'm just gonna scribble it in. There's another pathway here. This is Temple 2. All right, so then this ends up becoming, this right here ends up becoming scene 1. This is gonna be scene 2, his pathway. This is gonna be scene 3. This will be scene 4, and this will be scene 5. This is all basically one sequence. It's just one short story. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different scenes in it. And the scenes are broken up with separate shots. All right, so, oops, hold on a second. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take my paper and I'm going to align it so that it is in perpendicular to what this camera sees right here. So I'm going to draw a little vertical line right here. And I'm going to take that little thing I just showed you with my cardboard, which I have it right here. I'm going to make sure that the aspect ratio is somewhat correct. Yeah, I'm just going to put it right here. This could be my establishing shot. The first thing that I see is a tree, and I'm just going to draw a line of action for the tree. I'm going to draw a hill. Billy is sitting on the tree, underneath the tree. There's another kind of hill, and then the farmer dad is like right here, gesturally. In this shot, I could add my perspective. The farmhouse is going to be maybe over here. And then I can see the brothers in the background here. There's perspective in the sky. And it always helps just to remind you, put that perspective in there. So it's your initial shot. That's what this camera sees. And then what you can always do is zoom in to Billy. So you're going to zoom into Billy, and then you're going to go over to Dad, like that. And we kind of talked about this last week. And so we have your establishing shot A, and then you're going to go from camera A to camera B, and then you're going to go from camera B to camera C to see what Dad is doing. And then you can go back and forth there. So that's just this camera B is actually right here, and then camera C is actually right here, but it's all part of the same basic shot. Right, so this is your establishing shot. And that's your map. And you can plan this all out just with your script. Do you want to show Dad looking at the boy? Do you want the boy back and forth? And remember, we did this right at the end of class last week, where if you want to do two characters that are talking, remember the old adage of the two people, character A and character B, sitting at a small table, a small cafe, and they're drinking coffee. And this camera sees the table, and then character A is over here, line of action, sitting. Maybe the table is a little higher. Character B, line of action, sitting. So it's cat A and B. And then you're going to rotate this so that your camera is over here, because your line of action is like this. Your 180-degree rule is here. And what this camera sees is the table is basically in the same place. Character B can be OS, it can be over the shoulder. This is character B, and character A is now a little smaller. They're in the same place on the screen. The little coffee cups are in perspective. And then the other camera over here, and this is just the easiest way to do this, sees the table basically in the same place, but now character A is OS, over the shoulder. Sometimes the thumbnails will have that character darkened in a little bit because it's just a silhouette. It's character A. Coffee cup is big, it's a little smaller here for rules of perspective, right? And then character B is smaller. So that's just a really great way to set up your original shots for the old story, but first storyboard thing about how to set up the 180-degree rule, keep your continuity correct. Characters are always in the same place on a two-shot. So if these characters were talking here, character B is talking, then you use this shot and you go back and forth and back and forth. All right. So once we establish that this is scene 1, that this is scene 2, this is going to be scene 3, this is scene 4, and that this ends up becoming scene 5. Once you go from one scene to another, you can put your camera anywhere you want. You don't have to show, for instance, you don't have to show this path. in the first sequence. You can just allude to it. In your script, you can just say that the dad and the boy are arguing with each other, and he yells at him and he tells him to go off. In this kind of thing, the dad can actually set up a pose where he's really mad and defiant, and he's got his hands on his shoulders and he's pointing. Right, so this is a really great way to set up that line of action. Go. Maybe you want to go backwards a pose and say, he's frustrated, so his line of action is like this, and he's got his hands up on his face. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Everyone's working and you're just goofing off here. And then he's going to change his line of action to go the other way. He's kind of bent over and he's kind of just thinking to himself, oh my God. And so you can just study what those poses are like right there. There's a couple of really great artists. I don't know if I captured them in here. Let's just go to it. Mike Matese. Is a great, this is his book called Drawing Force. And he uses the line of action in every single line that he draws. His drawings are all about force and push and exaggeration. He's a great, he teaches life drawing at Pixar, so I think he might know a little bit about what he's doing. So that's a really great study in how to put the line of action together. All right, so if the dad is going to point, then Billy can just get up and start to walk off the screen here, and then you can cut. So once you do this, your 180-degree line can be here. So these cameras can point this way, and this camera is going to go that way. And this can just be a few panels where you see him traveling, and there's some trees here. And then when he can go all the way up to here, and this camera can turn around just a little bit within shot 2. And then in shot 3, scene 3, sorry, can be have a line of action like this. And so the boy approaches the temple here and he goes in, and when he goes inside, that becomes scene 3. So the interior is this scene 3. The exterior here can belong to scene 2. And then the monk is going to get mad at him and he's going to leave. Once he leaves, once he gets chased, it's go home. And so the boy is supposed to go this way home, but instead he pauses and he's going to go this way. So now he's going to walk along scene 4. So you can put your camera anywhere you want. It might make sense to put your camera on this side, show a couple poses here, and then this exterior shot is going to be the same part of scene 4. And so here he is knocking on the door of the empty temple. The door is open, he pushes in there, and then this is scene 5. Once you get inside here, you set your 180-degree rule here. So you have to do a map. So this is just the easiest way to set this up. And, again, I'm recording this just so that you can get this notion. All right, so having drawn that, then we can go to our next panel here. And what you can do is just start to set this up and give yourself your title card. And then remember that this is just going to be a little bit didactic, but that's okay. I always put panel numbers in the upper left. So this is panel number. And then the sequence is usually up on top. There's only going to be one sequence, so you don't have to do a sequence. But you have scene 1. And you just need to indicate that once in your thumbnail. So this is panel 1. This is going to be shot. So if you're, like I said in our introduction last week, if your title card has animation in it, then that is actually shot 1. So maybe it does, and so this is going to be shot 2. I always circle the first indication for the shot, right? And then in the bottom right down here is going to be your slug. And your slug is going to be your timing. So your title card might be 5 seconds. This open establishing shot might be 8 seconds. And you can translate that into frames if you want. You can put 128 frames. You can do whatever you want in terms of seconds or timing here. All right, everyone okay? All right, so I'm just setting this up for you, reminding you that I don't think that I want you going to the flying animator and grabbing this JPEG out there because of the following. You're not going to be able to draw through this. So once you go to your first panel, you can and so that was just didactic. That was just a reminder of panel number, shot number, scene number, SC, scene. This is your slug. This is your general timing. You don't have to do this just right now, but once you start drawing, you can remind yourself, this is my title card. And then give yourself some room with that establishing shot. You can even draw it a little bigger if you want. Again, the tree, trees have lines of action. So in here, I'm going to put Billy on the lower left focal point. I'm going to put his board here so I can see what he's drawing. And then the farmer dad is going to be here. So I'm going to just draw his gesture and then put my perspective in there. Perspective in the sky. Lightly, loosely, draw the little house back there, and then the brothers. So dad is on the right focal points, upper and lower. So that's your good shot right there. So what you can do then is, hold on a second, I have to remind myself of the selection key. So what I'm going to do then, and this is the nice thing about doing this digitally, is that I'm going to just grab a copy of that. And I'm going to make it just a little bigger. And then on top of that, I can draw the camera move. So this is my establishing shot. And I could say, you know, I want my camera move to go from there to here. And then I'm going to go from there to the dad. And so camera A, camera B, camera C. And if I wanted to draw that out, then I can just get my close up on here. So I've got all this reference. I got a tree up here. It looks like I don't need the bark of the tree or the trunk of the tree, but I could put it in there so that I can get the little Billy character leaning on it. I could draw it just a little more clearly, just like that. So this is just this shot. So this is just B, just like that. Again, you just want to remind yourself where your focal points are. And because you're thumbing, you can widen this out a little bit so that he stays on the lower and left focal points. All right, and then you have to look at this. The farmer dad is still out of the way here. So there's an open shot here. This kind of adds a little visual tension. All right, and then you could do the C shot then. Or you could do the C shot up here. Like you can add to this and say, I want to zoom up to him, and you could put the farmer over here, but you could do it separately too. You could just do a straight cut. So he's on the lower and upper and lower cinematic third on the left. We're going to put the farmer on the upper and lower cinematic third on the right. So just back to our little coffee table thing. Billy's on the left. Your farmer is always on the right. Just draw it gesturally, again with the setup and the perspective, you know. And then at this point, you might even convince yourself that you might want to go and from this B position and do an ECU, an extreme close-up. So this is a wide shot. This is a mid shot. This is going to go from a wide shot into a close-up into an ECU. So this is a close-up, and then this becomes an ECU. So once you do that, you're going to switch back to the idea of him going through a little bit of acting. And so he's still on the right here, so keep him on the right. Even though you're doing a an extreme close-up, keep them on the right. And remember, we talked about this a little bit last week about this is where you go in there and you figure out what he looks like. So just get the idea of him, get the line of action so you know where his shoulders are, and then some acting. And the idea of doing this digitally then is that if you need to, you can just copy this whole thing here. Oops, sorry. And study his action. And you can just go back in there and say, he's going to change his expression. He's going to become a little bit more angry. Maybe he's going to say something, Billy, I told you to get to work. You know, you could put dialogue down here. And again, rough, the idea is just rough. Keep the lines gestural. Whenever you draw the line of action for a character, you have a couple options. One is you always draw the head first, and you can draw a simple stroke for the line of action. You just keep a regular C shape. You can just keep the line of action fairly simple. You can also use a compound curve. The compound curves are nice because it gives you a left and a right swing, giving the character a sense of balance. So that's just for the head and body. And then you have a line of action for the feet too. So, and those can be a compound curve. Shoulders and hips have the cantilever. So identify where your deltoids are, and then give your arms a line of action. So this is just a really nice way to draw gesturally. And you should be picking this kind of idea up about gesture drawing from your life drawing classes. So this is a nice little gesture. Head, line of action, body, shoulders, contrapposto is what you learn in life drawing, that your shoulders and your hips are always opposite. Arms have their own line of action. Legs have their own lines of action. So this is a nice little gesture drawing. Again, so you can go back in here and you can then study Dad. He's like dejected now. So his eyes are closed, his head is down. Now we see the top of his head. You can put a little arrow down here. Because this is an ECU, you can just have a sky in the background. You can have a color card. But remember, as you're doing this, you're just ideating. And so right here, this would be panel 1. I'm sorry. I keep my panels on the left side. Keep panel 1, panel 2. This was just the study. So this is panel 3, panel 4, panel 5, panel 6, panel 7, and you keep going, and you go through your script, and you get the whole thing just gestured out. Questions?